Alright, so just doing a audio check. Just want to make sure everything's good. Alright, so just doing a audio check. Alright, yep. Make sure everything's good. Alright, so just doing a audio. Oh, okay. That was has the echoing effect. I'm gonna code for a couple hours, and gonna kind of make it pretty straightforward. We're just gonna do HTML. Got a lot out of the way. So where we ended up was we got HTML done, and now we're working on CSS. So this is where we are in CSS. This is HTML, indicates it's done. 18 out of 44. So we're just gonna, for a couple hours, just go as far as we can. How I'm gonna do this is I'm just gonna go live to just cover the material, but then what I'm eventually gonna do is I'm gonna edit the videos down, and then kind of make it more condensed. So I don't know if I really expect too much engagement when the lives happen, but the premieres will be more like condensed, smaller tutorials. But we're just gonna kind of continue in CSS. So let's get started. So add different padding to each side of the element. Actually, I want to get my phone so that I'm able to keep track of chat. Alright, just put it next to me. Alright, so sometimes you want to customize an element so it has different amounts of padding on each of its sides. CSS allows you to control the padding of all four individual sides of an element with the padding top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left. So the padding is kind of the space in between the element's contents and the rest of the element. Give the blue box padding of 40 on its top and left side. So it's going to be padding top, padding left, but only 20 pixels on the bottom and right side. Okay. So the blue box is gonna encompass the blue box class. So this blue box is using the blue box class, because remember point or dot blue box, right? And if we look at what inherits the what is using the blue box class, it's this, because to invoke this class you don't have a dot before it, and this is the code. So this code is essentially being used for this when we invoke this. So let's just let's do this. So it's saying to make the padding on the top and left. So let's do that. Padding top, and how much is it? 40 pixels. So padding top and padding left. and then 20 pixels on the bottom and right. Padding bottom, 20 pixels, and padding right. So if this all checks out, it'll give us the clear after you run the tests. So let's do it. We'll see if we did this correctly. Says we passed. So now submit, go to the next challenge. Add different margins to each side of the element. Sometimes you want to customize an element so that it has a different margin on each of its sides. CSS allows you to control the margin of all 4 individual sides of an element with the margin top, margin right, margin bottom, and margin left properties. Give the blue box a margin of 40 pixels on the top and left. So it's going to look like this, right? So give the blue box a margin of 40 on its top and left. So let's go to the blue box class. And add that in. So margin top and left is going to be 40 pixels. And margin left is going to be 40 pixels. Margin bottom and margin right is going to be 20 pixels. So if you see, it changed. So that is kind of a margin is essentially kind of positioning, kind of its position relative to the superseding element. So if you notice, it kind of moved around. Like if we make it, like 50, it moves here. 20, it moves here. Or 90. We're supposed to make it 20. See if we pass the test. And we did. Use clockwise notation to specify the padding of an element. Instead of specifying an element's padding top, padding right, padding bottom, and padding left properties individually, you can specify them all in one line, like this. Alright, so what does this mean? So if you remember, we would have, a padding top, a whole line devoted to padding top, a whole line devoted to padding right, a whole line devoted to padding bottom, a whole line devoted to padding left. But what if you could get it all done in one line? So that's kind of how you do it. The question is, how do you know which is which? Like, what is the top, what is the bottom, what is the left, what is the right? So it tells you the order, and it's kind of in clockwise. So, top would be, it's like kind of like, imagine 12 o'clock, then right, imagine, to the right, it's like a clock, and then bottom, and then left. So so this is like padding top, or anything top, anything right, anything bottom, anything left. So this is a padding top element, the padding right element, the padding bottom element, and the padding left element. So what is the question? So again, in the dot blue class. In the dot blue class, we're going to set the pattern. So 40 on its top and left. So remember the order. It goes top, right, bottom, left. So it starts with top, and that's 40, right? 40px. But now we're looking for the right, not the left. So what is it telling us to put the right? 20 pixels, right? But only 20 pixels on its bottom and right. So now 20px. And now going again, so we went from top, then we went right. Now bottom. So what's bottom? Bottom is 20. Now what is the left side? That's 40px. Now if we followed everything correctly, this should pass the test. Oh, actually did I make a mistake? Okay, it's supposed to be top, and top is 40, right? And right is supposed to be 20, and bottom is supposed to be 20, and left is supposed to be 40. So I'm not sure why it didn't pass the test in this case. Your blue box class should give top elements of 40 padding. Alright, so... Oh. I'm putting commas instead. Hold on. That's what it is. It's supposed to be separated by spaces. Yeah. Thanks, Double X. So we're already 48% done. Now we're going to continue. Use clockwise notation to specify the margin of an element. Let's try this again, but with margin this time. It's just my computer. Instead of specifying an element's margin top, right, margin bottom, and left properties individually, you can specify them all in one line. So this is the same thing as padding, just with the clockwise notation. So clockwise is top, right, bottom, left, just like a clock. So what is it asking us to do? In the four values, work like a clock, top, right, bottom, left, and we'll produce the exact same result as using the site-specific margin instructions. Use clockwise notation to give the element, the blue box class, a margin of 40 on its top and left. Okay, let's get to the line. So 40 on its top. So margin, let's just start with margin. So what is the top? $40 on its top. Now we're thinking of the right. So what is it asking for the right? 20px, right? Oh, I keep doing the comma. I'm just in a habit of using commas. So now top, right, now bottom. 20, right? But only 20, so 20 on its bottom and right, and 40 on its top and left. So we've done top, right, now bottom, that's also going to be 20. And left is going to be 40. So it should work, should pass the test. Let's see if it does. And it did. Now we're 50%. Use attribute selectors to style elements. You've been adding ID or class attributes to elements that you wish to specifically style. These are known as ID and class selectors. There are other CSS selectors you can use to select custom groups of elements to style. We'll spring out cat photo app again, the cat photo app again, to practice using CSS selectors. For this challenge, you'll use the attribute equals value attribute selector to style the checkboxes in cat photo app. The selector matches and styles elements with a specific attribute value. For example, the below code changes the margins of all elements with the attribute type and a corresponding value of radio. So, what does this code mean? Using the type attribute selector, try to give the checkboxes in cat photo app a top margin of 10px and a bottom margin of 15px. So again, what does this mean? That means that all radio buttons will have this attribute. Any radio button that exists. So let's try it out. Type equals not radio, but not sure if it's checkbox. I think it's checkbox in this case. And we're going to make the margin. What is it telling us to do? So top 10px. So we're using the clockwise model. I keep doing the comma. Actually, it wouldn't make sense really to do. Actually, we would just put a 0 there. I think that'll work. So top right, bottom is 15px pixels, and left is unspecified. So we'll just make that 0px. So if it's unspecified, you can just put 0. Both will work. So you can do margin dash top 10px and then margin bottom 15px. But if it's unspecified, you can also put 0. Oh, Whoops. So, so now we passed that test. So this literally means that all radio buttons are going to have this attribute, this style, and that's just how it works. Alright, 52%. Understand absolute versus relative units. So if you notice, we were using pixels before. Last several challenges all set in elements margin or padding with pixels. Pixels are a type of length unit, which is what tells the browser how to size or space an item. In addition to pixels, px, CSS has a number of different length unit options that you can use. The two main types of length units are absolute and relative. Absolute units tie to physical units of length. For example, IN, what do you think that is? Inches, mm, millimeters, respectively. Absolute length units approximate the actual measurement on a screen, but there are some differences depending on a screen's resolution. Relative units such as EM or REM are relative to another length value. For example, EM is based on the size of the element's font. If you use it to set the font size property itself, it's relative to the parent's font size. Alright. Note, there are several relative unit options that are tied to the size of the viewpoint. They are covered in the responsive web design principle section. So add a padding property to the element with the class redbox. So where is redbox? So the class redbox is, trying to scroll down, it's right here, right? So padding 1.5 EM. Oh, EM. Is that? I think we have, and I think we would put a comma there. I think that works. So what does EM mean again? It's based on the size of the element's font. So if we make that, let's say we make that 2. Say we make that 3. 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all relative to the font. But I want to make it 1.5. Where was it 1.5? Alright. So style the HTML body element. Now let's start fresh and talk about CSS inheritance. Every HTML page has a body element. We can prove that the body element exists here by giving it a background color of black. Okay. We can do this by adding the following to our style element. Is it just asking me to just use this code? Oh. I think it's just literally asking me to copy and paste this code. So that's kind of a... Yeah, alright. Now that we've proven that every HTML page has a body element, and that its body element can also be styled with CSS, remember, you can style your body element just like any other HTML element, and all your elements will inherit your body element's styles. First, create a h1 element with the text hello world. Alright. I think we should create the body element first. And now it's asking us to create a h1 element. Hello world. Then let's give all elements on the page the color of green. Give all elements on your page the color of green by adding color equals green. Okay. And whenever it just says color like that, it doesn't say background, it always implies the text. So now, in this situation, h1, right, is nested. It's like in the nest of the body element. This is in here. So when we say that all elements are going to have the color green, now every single element, and it could be a paragraph, it could be anything. It's just going to be green. Every single one. Because this style is... So anything that's in the body is going to be... Anything that's within the body element, which is essentially the web page, the bulk of the web page, is gonna inherit the style. So the reason why all this is green is because it's inheriting the style. But it didn't ask us to make a paragraph. Then let's give all elements on your page the color of green by adding the color green to your body element style declaration. Okay, you already did that. Finally, give your body element the font family of monospace by adding font family monospace to your body element style declaration. Okay. I think we actually just copy and paste that. So now, all elements, no matter what, are gonna inherit that font. So they're all gonna be the same. And why would you want to do that? Because kind of with anything, consistency is appealing for a web page. It wouldn't look good if they didn't there kind of wasn't a general theme of a website. It didn't have similar font, didn't have similar style, so it kind of keeps all the styles and everything consistent with each other. So that's kind of why you would want to do that. So then, by kind of styling it, to begin with, now everything will kind of fall into place. So let's see if that passed the test. Let's run the test. And we did. We passed. Prioritize one style over another. So that's interesting. So I think what they're kind of getting at is Well, I'll just read it. So sometimes your HTML elements will receive multiple styles that conflict with one another. So it's kind of making it choose. For example, your H1 element can't be both green and pink at the same time. Let's see what happens when we create a class that makes the text pink, then apply it to the element. Will our class override the body element's color green property? Okay, so one moment. Yeah, it'll be right back. I just have to check something. Yeah, I just had to check if I left the door open. Um, so back to this. So right now, as is, all text is going to be green. But what if we make a text, what if we make a class called pink text? So let's create that. This is a class. Then we make that pink. What happens then? And then we apply that class. But let's put it in the body. Let's nest it in the body element. So if this is correct, so make sure it's correct. So even though it's saying that every single element is going to have green text, because we're actually specifying in this situation for it to have pink text, that'll actually supersede this body style. And that's kind of in the exception that you want to change the element's property from what's inherited. And essentially what it's kind of saying here is there's kind of two instructions at once, because this does actually apply to this, because this h1 element is within the body element. So if this wasn't here, and I'll actually take it out for now, the default would be green. But if so now it has one instruction, now it's easy, but then we throw another instruction, so essentially it's two instructions at once. One instance here it's saying to make the text green, and then one instance here it's saying to make the text pink via this class. And the pink class is what actually happens. So the test worked. So override styles and subsequent CSS. Our pink text class overrode our body element CSS declaration. Yep. We just proved that our classes will override the body element CSS. So the next logical question is, what can we do to override our pink text class? So essentially what they're saying is, clearly this instruction overrode this instruction when we called the pink class, which has that instruction. But with these two instructions kind of competing, is there something that could even override this instruction? create an additional CSS class called blue text that gives an element the color blue. Alright. So how do we do that? The same way. And apply that in addition to the pink text. So it's essentially applying two classes at once. How do we do that? You know, we would use a space and blue text. So what won? What happened? So in this situation, what won? Before it's pink, now it's blue. Blue won, because now it's blue. Applying multiple class attributes to an HTML element is done with the space. Yep. No, it doesn't matter which order the classes are listed in the HTML element. However, the order of the class declarations in the style section is what's important. So when it means order, this one came first and this one came second. So let's see what happens if we flip that order. Now, the second one won. But now, the first one won. So what does that tell you? So it tells you, you kind of think that this one's first and this one's second. So it's kind of like you would kind of think the first one should be the second one, but actually the second one wins. The second instruction. So if anything, this is kind of confusing because we have three separate instructions. One, where all text in the body should be green, right? So if none of these were here, it would be green. Then we have two classes that have two separate text instructions. One's pink, one's blue. And then the pink one's first, the blue one's second, and then the blue wins. The second declaration will always take precedence over the first because blue text is declared second. It overrides the attributes of the pink text. So we'll see if that worked. Oops. My phone went off. Override class declarations by styling ID attributes. We just proved that browsers read CSS from top to bottom in order of their declaration. That means that in the event of a conflict, the browser will use whichever CSS declaration came last. So last is actually what takes priority. In life, it's kind of like the first one would take priority, but in this case, the last one takes priority. So you can have like 14 different instructions, but it's always going to be the last one that's going to take the priority. Notice that if we even had put blue text before the pink text in our h1 element class, it would still look at the declaration order and not the order of their use. So basically what it's saying is this is the order that ends up mattering. This is the order that ends up to matter, but it doesn't matter at all, this order. So it could be, I mean, this could be first. It just doesn't matter. I mean, I'll show you. So it's always gonna be the same thing. Let's override your pink text and blue text. So how do we override the pink text and blue text and make your H1 element orange? By giving the H1 element... Okay, so let's do that. Let's make an orange class that overrides both of them. How do we do that? Oh, whoops. Orange text. So now we positioned it that because it's the last one, it's going to this is going to be prioritized over these two. Now again, it doesn't matter the order. So we could put it in the same order it's here, but let's actually put it here. So still, as you can see, the orange one. By giving the H1 element an ID, and then styling that ID. Oh, so it's actually not even asking us to do a class in this situation. So if we make it an ID, it would be a pound sign, and this orange class doesn't exist anymore. So it's kind of like within the IDs and the classes, the ID one, it doesn't really have to do with anything other than this came last. So create a CSS declaration of your orange text ID with your style element. Here's an example of what it looks like. Alright. Yeah, I think that's all it asks us to do. Yep. Let's gonna go to the next challenge. Override class declarations with inline styles. So we've proven that ID declarations override class declarations, regardless of where they are declared in your style element. There are other ways to override. There are other ways you can override CSS. Do you remember inline styles? Alright. Use an inline style to try to make our H1 element white. Remember, inline styles look like this. Alright, so is it the same one they're asking? I believe it is. So what color? So it's saying leave the blue text class and the pink text class So I guess it's saying to make it white. Alright, so that took precedent over the ID. So actually, I think what they're saying is the style will take precedent over the ID, which will take precedent over the class. So in this situation, even though the ID is here, it would actually take precedent over these two classes because it's an ID. But then this takes precedent over that ID because it's an inline style. So inline styles take precedent over IDs, and IDs take precedent over inline styles. But if it comes neck and neck, the last one will be the one that it goes with. So the test passed. Just prove that inline styles will override all declarations in your style element. Wait, there's one last way to override CSS. This is the most powerful method of all, but before we do it, let's talk about why you would ever want to override CSS. In many situations, you'll use CSS libraries. These may accidentally override your own CSS. So when you absolutely need to be sure that an element has specific CSS, you can use this command, the important command. Let's go all the way back to our pink text class declaration. Remember that our pink text class was overridden by the subsequent class declarations. So this class overrode this class, and this overrode this class just because it's an ID. And then if we were to make an inline style, that would override that. So now we're going to figure out where this important command comes in. So let's go way back to our pink text declaration. Remember that our pink text class was overridden by the subsequent class declarations, ID declarations, and inline styles. Let's add the word important to your pink text elements color to make 100% sure that your H1 element will be pink. So, I think what it's saying is if we just put important here, before the comma, basically it breaks the rules. So before what did we say? The order should be basically classes. So basically it's classes I'm trying to find a way to explain this. kind of confusing to explain. Actually, I'm going to try to use Microsoft Paint here. I'm going to try to use Microsoft Paint here to explain what it's saying. Just one moment. Alright, so in this situation, we have, I'm going to do my best to draw with my pad. We have IDs. We have classes. No, don't want to do that. I'm not going to be able to I was going to say inline styles. So in this situation, we have an ID that's the orange, right? So I'll make that orange. I'm gonna try to write as neat as I can. We have two classes. One's pink. I want to actually redraw this in order, because the order matters. And then blue. And now, the inline style was white, but since we have a white background, let's decide to just make it brown. I just kind of want to make a visual representation of this. Brown. So let's oh, and also, if you remember, the all the elements are all in the body tag, right? They're in the body element. And the style for the body element is green. So I'll just put this in text. So this is green. So what happens in this situation? What takes precedent over what? So basically, the default, right, is going to be so the default is going to be body, right? So if we had none of the other ones, that's what it would be. What's next? What beats this? The class. Then what beats a class? The ID. Now what beats an ID? An inline style. So I think I'm actually going to copy, just to make it easy, I think I'm just going to copy this and then just paste it. Oh, I can't do that. I think I'm just going to type here. Inline style. That beats an ID. Now, if I put And if I put an important tag, just gotta scroll down more. I just want to make sure, is it before or after? Yep, before. That takes precedent over this. So, so a way to think of it is this will take priority over this. This will take priority over this. And this will take priority over this. And this is the default, but this will take priority over this. So, now that we have that, what if there's two of the same? It's the last one, right? So this takes priority over this. But let's say we put an important tag. If we put an important tag on this, then that kind of makes it so that now, because the important tag is kind of like the rule breaker, it makes it so that it'll actually be the most important one. Even though it's a class, which is less powerful than an ID, and even less powerful than an inline style, that text is going to be pink. So, it's kind of a lot of information, but that's essentially how it works. I'm going to go back to the code. I think we did it. But that's essentially how it works. Use hex code for specific colors. Did you know there are other ways to represent colors in CSS? One of these ways is called hexadecimal code, or hex code for short. We usually use decimals or base 10 numbers, which use the symbols 0 to 9 for each digit. Hexadecimals, or hex, are base 16 numbers, which means it uses 16 distinct symbols, like decimals. The symbols are 0 to 9, they represent the values from 0 to 9. Then A, B, C, D, E, F represent the values 10 to 15. Altogether, 0 to F can represent a digit in hexadecimal, giving us 16 possible values. You can find more information about hexadecimal numbers here. Okay. In CSS, we can use 6 hexadecimal digits to represent colors, 2 each for the red are 2 each for the green and the blue. So this is the red, this is the green, and this is the blue. So when all of them are 0, it's black, and is also the lowest possible value. You can find more information about the RGB color system here. Alright. Place the word black in our body element's background color with its hexadecimal representation. Okay, so because this means black, basically what it's saying is, yeah, we're saying the background color is black, but there's another way to represent that. Hexadecimal representation. Let's kind of go further with this. I'm gonna open this in another tab. Let's see another color. I was saying this is white. I think they're actually going to go over this, so I don't want to skip ahead. But yeah, so let's just run the test. Use hexadecimal code to mix colors. To review hex code, use 6 hexadecimal digits to represent colors, 2 each for red, green, and blue. From these 3 pure colors, red, green, and blue, we can vary the amounts of each to create over 16 million colors. So it's kind of like a lot of possibilities. For example, orange is pure red mixed with some green and no blue. So it's kind of like, imagine the color wheel. In hex code, this translates to being this. So this is that's orange. The digit 0 is the lowest number in hexadecimal code and represents a complete absence of color. The digit F is the highest number in hexadecimal code and represents the maximum possible brightness. The color words in our style element replace the color words with our style element with their correct hexadecimal codes. Okay, so red text. So we gotta make this color red. What's red? Saying red is this. This is the hexadecimal representation of red. So make this red. And we just know that by looking it up. This is supposed to be green. So where's green? This is green. So literally, instead of saying green, we're just using another way to do that. Dodger blue. Okay, that's going to be this. And orange text. So what is orange? Alright, so what we did was we just kind of looked up the code representation. Oh, and Joe Burrs is in chat. So basically we're just going through this tutorial set we've been kind of doing for a while. I'm kind of just learning and teaching as I go. And now we're into CSS. So if all this is correct, and we did this properly, these tests should check out. Alright. Use abbreviated hexadecimal code. Many people feel overwhelmed by the possibilities of more than 16 million colors, and it's difficult to remember hexadecimal code. Fortunately, you can shorten it. For example, red's hexadecimal code is this. It can be shortened to F00. Okay, so that's kind of like a easier way to remember this. This shortened form gives 1 digit for red, 1 digit for green, and 1 digit for blue. This reduces the total number of possible colors to around 4,000, but browsers will interpret them the same. Go ahead and try to use the abbreviated hexadecimal codes to color the correct elements. Alright, so now we're looking up the abbreviated hexadecimal codes in the exact same way. So now, for red, what is the abbreviated hexadecimal code for red? Well, it's just telling you it's this. This shortens, saying this is the abbreviated code. For this, and it's saying that this is the abbreviated code. Cayenne, I think that's how it's pronounced, to this. And for green, this is the abbreviated version of green. So we'll see it work. Alright. I'm just going to step back and see how far we've gone. We've been going on for about an hour and 22 minutes. So we're almost done with basic CSS. Then we're going to get really into the intermediate level. then we're gonna get into projects. So then I plan on putting all this on GitHub, so they're all downloadable. So any of these projects, I'm just gonna build them and then put them on GitHub. I think they have you build your own, so you can do that as well. And after this one, we're gonna go into the new one and then do kind of the basic version of the new one. So I think I'll end it off here, because we're going on for about an hour and 22 minutes. Yeah.